The history for Green River was amazing for its time. You know, we're talking pre-prohibition.
J.W. McCulloch was a gauger for the federal government. And a gauger basically is a tax man. So back in the day, Owensboro had about 22 active distilleries. So he was pretty busy, you know, going around testing all the proofs, making sure they were paying the right taxes. We have to assume that he probably felt he could do better. And he bought a little distillery called the Eagle Distillery. It sat on the Green River, which is just a few miles west of here, but it was a terrible location. So he relocated it to this exact property. And I assume he named it Green River just honoring that original location. The success of Green River, I attribute it to three different things. The first thing is that McCulloch, he advertised the heck out of this brand. And even back from 1885 to 1918, when it was in existence, it won awards over in Paris, it won awards over in Italy, it won the World's Fair multiple times. And if you think back to that time period, how long did it take them to get the product over to those places? And then to have it there was insane. So that was the first thing that made Green River very successful. The second thing was it was considered the most expensive whiskey ever sold back then. A man in Colorado traded his shares of his Colorado gold mine called the Forest Queen for 20 barrels of Green River whiskey. Well, lo and behold, that mine panned out. No pun intended. And Green River then became the most expensive whiskey ever sold. But the third thing, I think, is what made Green River so successful. Pre-prohibition, whiskey was considered medicinal. You go to the doctor, you get a prescription and tell you to go take this whiskey and drink it. And in order to be awarded the contract to be the official whiskey of the United States Marine Hospital, distilleries had to petition the government, and they had to do it every single year. Well, Green River won that contract for 18 years. So therefore, it was all over the place, literally. With Green River, from 1885 to 1918, it was highly successful. But it was a Saturday night in August of 1918 that a trash fire took out the entire distillery in 3 hours. It was about 45,000 barrels of whiskey. Estimated value back then was at $3 million. Today we'd put that at over $60 million. And it was gone in a blink of an eye, the entire distillery. So that was 2 years before Prohibition started. And the distillery never got back up and running. And then Prohibition hit, it went from 1920 to 1933. And the founder, J.W. McCulloch, he actually died in 1927. So the distillery itself got rebuilt in the mid-30s. It never saw success that it had pre-Prohibition. It bounced around a few times, and then it just kind of faded away.
But the lure of that 1910s, 1920s era, even the 1880s, is something about that has lured people back in.
So a group of investors found the property in 2014 and they purchased it and they rebuilt it. It took a couple of years and millions of dollars to get it back up and running. So about the only buildings that were being used are the one that we're currently sitting in. We call it our visitor center. It was being used for events like weddings and parties and things. We have another area we call our production building that was being used for storage. But the actual still house, fermentation, the rick houses, most of them didn't have roofs. And so we had to replace the roof on all those buildings, as well as the still that was here had not been used, so it was a rust bucket. The fermenters, some of them were there, but they needed obviously repair after having been dormant for so long. So it took us a good bit. It took a couple of years to get everything back up and running. And we started producing in 2016. At the time when we started producing, we didn't own the naming rights to Green River. It took us a little while to get that. Once we got the naming rights back in 2020, we brought Green River back home after over 130 years.
I think as far as being the head distiller, I think a lot of people assume that you get to sit around in rick houses like these and sample barrels all day long. There's so much more to it. So with my position, I'm in charge of distillation, managing the mash bills, managing incoming grain, all of our procedures, even the final distillate coming out, whether it's a yes or a no, whether we need to go back and take a look at the process or are we good, don't touch anything, just let it sit, as well as barrel filling. and aged warehouse. So we're constantly looking at our capacities in rick houses. Where do we need to move certain products and pulling products for customers that we have aging? We only have about 5 mash bills with 21% rye bourbon, 21% wheated bourbon. We do a 5 grain, we just started this year, and then we do a 95.5 rye whiskey, which is 95% rye, 5% malt. It's one of the hardest mash bills in the world to make, but we feel like we make it really, really well, and it's a world-class whiskey. We also just brought back a 13% rye bourbon we're going to bring back. So our age profile on our finished products is right at 5 years. Some of the single barrels will be a little bit older, but for our standard flavor profile we look for is that 5 to 6 year range. I feel like with Green River we've set the bar. We've set a bar that needs to be met, and hopefully by someone else gone well past. You know, records are meant to be broken, bars are set to be broken. I feel like we should be raising the bar every day, keep that work ethic, and in that pursuit of perfection, we'll find excellence, and that's what we long for.
We call this hallowed ground. We sit on 26 acres, and this is where the original distillery was. Why rebuild here? We're so far away from the rest of the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. You know, again, Owensboro was the mecca for distilleries pre-prohibition. There were about 22 active distilleries. So it was important when you take a look at everything. This property holds so much history in the bourbon world that it was important to bring it back. And when you have such an iconic brand as what Green River was, to bring it back and do it in the right manner and to make a quality product again, such as what was made, was really important. Putting Owensboro back on the map, you know, we sit on the Ohio River, so pre-prohibition, that was the main mode of transportation. So it's been a real honor to get it back up and running and bring some notoriety back to Owensboro. We consider ourselves the Western Gateway to the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. We're a heritage member, and it's a fun time. It's a great industry to be in. The people that started it to begin with, they deserve to have that notoriety from 1885 through now. And so living here in Owensboro, I am very proud to represent Green River and go out and share our story. It's a great feeling. I've been here since 2018. I started here as a tour guide. Now I'm the National Brand Ambassador, and people are excited to see Green River, and they want to hear the story, and they want to come visit. To me, that's a very proud moment, to know all the hard work that we've all put in here, to see it all come to fruition. There's a love here for not only the craft that we do, the place we work for, the people that we work with every day. It's a really good family to be a part of. We are developing an interest for this part of the state. We're drawing interest to Owensboro and Daviess County, and we're growing interest in our industry. We want people to understand that, yes, we make whiskey, but we provide a lot of jobs, and we provide a lot of help to our communities. We have a story that we don't really have to work on a whole lot. It tells itself, and I think people are really drawn to that, and the consumer can really feel that with their experience here at the distillery and when they buy one of our products.